Kevalasa Dukkha Khandasa Samudayo Hoti.
So please look at this sheet and handed out today. So this is for Salayatana Paccaya Phasso and Phassa Paccaya Vedana. The first line represents 5 kinds of objects. So Rupa, Saddha, Gandha, Rasa and Potthapa. What is Rupa? Sight or visible object. Saddha, sound. Gandha, smell. Rasa, taste. And Potthapa, touch. So this thought process is for these 5 objects only. I do not make the chart for the Dhamma object because it needs another one. And then the second group is consciousness. So the first one is Chakku Vijnana, eye consciousness. The Chakku means eye and Vijnana means consciousness. So eye consciousness. And following it on its right, what? Sampatichana, that is receiving consciousness. Next is Santirana, investigating consciousness. And then within the brackets, the first one is Vattabhana, determination, determinating consciousness. And then Javana. Javana is Javana. we cannot translate it, right? It translated as impulsion or something like that, but that is more difficult than the word Javana. So we just call it Javana. And those are put in the brackets because according to the explanation given in Visuddhimagga, we don't need them here because it is the round of results, and so we are concerned with resultant consciousness only. And Vattabhana and Javana are not resultant consciousness, so we will leave these 2 out. And then the last one is Tadaramana. So it is given in the footnote as aftertaste. So it is called registering consciousness. It is like aftertaste. So it takes the object of the Javana which precedes it. And so it is like something, you eat something and then there is aftertaste. So this is a part of the thought process. And instead of Chakku Vijnana, there can be Sota Vijnana, where if the object is number 2 here, Saddha. Instead of that, there can be Ghana Vijnana if the object is number 3, Kanda. And instead of Ghana, there can be Jihva Vijnana if the object is Rasa. And instead of that, there can be Kaya Vijnana when the object is 5, Potthapa. So Chakku Vijnana means eye consciousness. So Sota Vijnana means ear consciousness. Ghana Vijnana, nose consciousness. Jihva Vijnana, tongue consciousness. And Kaya Vijnana, body consciousness. And then down below, Phassa Vedana plus. Plus means and others. Not only Vedana, there are other mental factors. So Phassa, Vedana and others. They are Chetasikas. And also under Sampadichana, Phassa, Vedana and others, and like that until the end, Phassa, Vedana and others. And then below that we have what? Chakku Pasada. That means eye sensitivity. So what we call the eye. The sensitive area in the eye is called eye sensitivity. In Pali it is called Chakku Pasada. Pasada means clear. So the clear part of the eye, that means the sensitive part in the eye, where the image strikes. And then number 2 is what? Sota Pasada. So that is ear sensitivity, which is in the ear. And number 3, Ghana sensitivity, Ghana Pasada, nose sensitivity, that is in the nose, where we know the smell. And then Jihwa Pasada, tongue sensitivity, what I call taste buds. And then Kaya Pasada, body sensitivity. Body sensitivity resides all over the whole body, except at the tip of the hair and nails, and also when there is some dry area on the skin. So, except them, the kaya sensitivity is on all over the body. Now, when you study the 5 factors in the round of results, you may think that you have to go to different places to collect these 5 factors. But that is not so. In fact, you can find all these factors in one place. Now, for example, let's take rupa, visible object. So when this visible object comes into the avenue of Chakku Pasada, eye sensitivity, what is produced? What arises? Chakku Vijnana arises, right? There is the object to be seen, there is the eye, and there is the eye consciousness. Along with that eye consciousness, there are phassa, vedana, and others, the other mental factors. And this Chakku Vijnana depends on the Chakku Pasada, eye sensitivity. If there is no eye sensitivity, there can be no eye consciousness, no seeing consciousness. So eye consciousness is said to depend on eye sensitivity. And this eye sensitivity is what is called eye door. Now there are 6 sense doors. So there are eye door, ear door, nose door, and so on. So eye door means really this eye sensitivity. It is like a door through which consciousness arises. So when you see something, there are all these 5 factors together. Now there is seeing consciousness, and there is the object to be seen, there are cetasikas, phassa, vedana, and so on, and there is the eye sensitivity, right? So where is vijnana? We will begin with vijnana, nama, rupa, salayatana, phassa, vedana. So where is vijnana? Yeah, Chakku Vijnana is Vijnana, right? Where is Nama?
The base of the eye.
No. Where is Nama? Nama. After Vijnana comes Nama Rupa, right? Yeah. So where is Nama here? No. Phassa, vedana, and others, they are called Nama here. Cetasikas. And where is Rupa? Right. The visible object and the eye sensitivity. So they are Rupa, right? So we have Vijnana, Nama, Rupa. Then where are Ayatanas? These same Nama and Rupa are Ayatanas, right? Rupa is Rupa Ayatana, and Chakku Vijnana is Mana Ayatana, mind door, mind base, and Chitisikas are Dhamma base, and Chakku Prasada is Chakku base. So, although there are not all 6 ayatanas, because we are dealing with just the eye. So there are ayatanas. So Vijnana, Nama Rupa, Salayatana, and then Phassa there among the Dhammayatana, and Vedana there among the Dhammayatana. So these 5 factors, we don't have to go to other places to collect them. So whenever we see something, whenever we hear something, these 5 factors are there, arising together. If you understand the 5 factors with regard to seeing consciousness, then you understand the 5 factors regarding hearing consciousness, smelling consciousness, tasting consciousness, and touching consciousness. Now, there are other types of consciousness, Sampaticana, Santirana, and others. They have different base. Now, they rely not on eye base, but they rely on what base? Haddaya Vatu, heart base. So, the Sampaticana, Santirana, also Vattabana, Javana, and Tadaramana, their base is not eye sensitivity and so on, but their base is called what? Haddaya Vatu, heart base. So they rely on heart base. Heart base is also one of the ayatanas, or included in one of the ayatanas. It is included in Dhamma ayatana, so it is also an ayatana. Between Phassa and Vedana, I talked about last night. So Phassa and Vedana arise together at the same moment. And Phassa is said to be the conditioning factor, and Vedana conditions factor. How are they related? In what way? Now, they arise at the same time, so they exist at the same time. So their relationship is the kind of coexistence. And there are mutual support and others too. But when the Phassa is related to Vedana under Sampaticana, now there is a different relationship. Their relationship is not of coexistence, because they don't arise together now. The Vedana arises after Phassa. But immediately after Chakku Vijnana, there is Sampaticana. So it is by way of proximity or by way of disappearance that they are related. The Chakku Vijnana disappears so that Sampaticana can arise. If Chakku Vijnana does not disappear, then Sampaticana cannot arise. So Sampaticana is a condition for, Chakku Vijnana is a condition for Sampaticana by way of disappearance. I vacate this place so that you can sit in this place, something like that. So I am a condition for you to be in this place. So when the Phassa under Chakku Vijnana is related to Vedana under Sampaticana, then their relationship is not coexistence, but some other kind of relationship, which is called decisive support, or let us say wider support. First, it is a proximity or disappearance, and also decisive support to both. But when Phassa under Chakku Vijnana is related to Vedana under Sampaticana, Santirana, the relationship is again different. There is no proximity relationship. There is no disappearance relationship. But there is relationship of decisive support or wide support. So in this way, these are related. So they are related in different ways, And in order to understand their different relationships, you have to understand Patthana, the seventh book of Abhidhamma. So, according to Patthana, you can explain the different relationships they have with different cetasikas or different vedanas. Okay, let us end the talk on these 5 factors and go to the next one. So what is the next one? Tanha. So, because there is vedana as condition, tanha arises. What is tanha? The primary meaning of tanha is thirst. So you want to drink water. So desire to drink water is what is called tanha. So this mental state is like thirst. It cannot satisfy. However much, see, when you are thirsty, you drink water again and again, and then a little later you become thirsty again, and you want to drink water and thirsty again and drink water. So this mental state is like thirst. It craves for this thing, it craves for that thing, and so on. So this is translated as craving. Now this tanha is simply lobha among the 52 cetasikas. So lobha is attachment to objects, and tanha is also attachment to objects, but the word tanha is used, and so it is described as thirst for. That means just desire for visible objects and so on. So one cetasika, lobha, is sometimes called lobha, sometimes tanha, sometimes raga. Raga means stain or dye. You dye the cloth. Sometimes it is called kama, and there are many other words. So these 4 words are in frequent use for this one cetasika in the discourses as well as in Abhidhamma. So it is just lobha or attachment which is called tanha. Raga, the literal meaning of raga is, say, stain or dye. See, you want to put color into the cloth, and so you make it dye, and you dip the cloth into the color, and then the color gets into the cloth. So raga is like that. When there is raga, it is our minds are stained, and once there is a stain, once there is this dye, it's very very difficult to get rid of it. So the opposite word of raga is viraga. Viraga means, it is translated as fading away, but actually it is not fading away. It is disappearance of that dye or that color, not fading little by little, because when raga is eradicated, it is just eradicated. Not that you eradicate raga a little bit by bit, but when you reach the fourth stage of enlightenment, then it is altogether cut off. So raga, the meaning, the literal meaning of raga is a dye or stain. And since lobha is like stain or dye, it is called raga. Corresponding to the 6 kinds of objects, there are 6 kinds of tanha. So there are rupa tanha, saddha tanha, gandha tanha, rasa tanha, potthappa tanha, and dhamma tanha. Rupa tanha means thirst for or attachment to. visible objects. And Saddha Tanha means thirst for or attachment to audible objects of sound, and Gandha Tanha means thirst for or attachment to smell and so on. So corresponding to the 6 kinds of objects, there are said to be 6 kinds of tanha. Now the last one is, I told you about the Dhamma object last night, right? So what are the Dhamma objects? You remember? Sensitivity, and then water element, right? And then masculinity, femininity, and then life principle, and also lightness of the body, softness of the body, adaptability of the body. These are called subtle rupa. So these subtle rupa are included in the Dhamma object. And also all types of consciousness are included in Dhamma object. All Chidisikas are included in Dhamma object. Nibbana is also included in Dhamma object. And Panyati, concept, is also included in Dhamma object. So there are many Dhamma objects. Now when you see something beautiful, you have eye consciousness, and you have phassa, and there is vedana, pleasant feeling. And since the object is a beautiful one, since the vedana is a pleasant one, the tanha which follows is tanha, or craving for or attachment to that something which is seen, to that visible object. Now, the tanha takes the visible object as its object, but it is related to vedana by way of decisive support, because it arises later, not at the same time. Because strictly speaking, at the moment of Chakku Vijnana, no tanha can arise. Only at the moments of Javana can tanha arise. So the tanha which arises later is related to feeling at this moment, is by way of decisive support or wider support. Now, when you like your eyes means like the seeing ability of your eyes, what tanha is that?
Dhamma.
Right, Dhamma tanha, right? So when you like your ears, not the outside ears, but the sensitivity inside, and that is Dhamma tanha. When you like your consciousness, Dhamma tanha. When you like your mindfulness, it's also Dhamma tanha, right? So there can be many kinds of Dhamma tanha. Okay, today, each of these 6 kinds of tanha is said to be of 3 kinds, depending on how it arises. And those 3 kinds of tanha are kama tanha, bhava tanha, and vibhava tanha. I deliberately use the Pali words. I want you to be familiar with these words, Pali words, because it's very important to understand the correct meaning or correct interpretation of these 3 kinds of tanha. Many authors made their own interpretations, which is not in accordance with the traditional one. So we follow the traditional interpretation, because traditional interpretation was made by the ancient masters who are closer to the Buddha than we are, and so who are more likely to understand the Buddha's teachings than we do. And also it is time tested, and so you cannot be wrong if you follow the traditional interpretation. But if you want to part from the traditional interpretation and say put your own interpretation, be careful. You might be wrong. Because what you know may not be comprehensive enough to take all the aspects in. So you may see just one aspect, and then you may draw conclusion from just one that aspect, and that may not be correct. So if you want to part from tradition, please be careful. Be sure that you are perfectly right to make such a departure from the tradition. So now I will tell you the traditional interpretation of these three kinds of tanha, which was made by the masters of ancient old, and which has been handed down from generation to generation of teachers until our time, and so which cannot be wrong. So the first one is called kama tanha. So kama tanha means thirst for objects of desire. Objects of desire are those objects that are beautiful, that are desirable. So those are called objects of desire. So the thirst for or attachment to objects of desire is called kama tanha. Actually, this kama tanha is just an ordinary lobha or general lobha, because lobha always is attachment to some object of desire. So everything in the world is object of desire. Everything can be the object of lobha or object of desire. So attachment to or thirst for these objects is called kama tanha. That same kama tanha, that same rupa tanha, occurs along with the eternity view that assumes that same object to be lasting and eternal. It is called bhavatana. So when the craving for rupa, that there are rupa tanha, sattva tanha, and so on, when that same craving for rupa arises together with the view that things are permanent, things are eternal, then it is called bhavatana. Now, following this explanation, can we translate bhavatana as tanha for bhava? No. If we translate it as tanha for bhava, it would not be different from kama tanha. Bhava is also object of the desire, right? We desire to be born in a good existence. So, if we translate it as thirst for bhava, then it will not be different from the first one, kama tanha. I think that is why the commentaries, the ancient masters interpreted this way. So, according to this interpretation, bhavatana means tanha associated with bhava. Now, bhava here does not mean existence. Now, the primary meaning of bhava is existence, but here we have to understand it in its secondary sense. When something exists, that means something is permanent or eternal. So the word bhava here represents that idea, that things are eternal, that soul is eternal, something like that. So the tanha which arises together with, or which is associated with that kind of view, we call it a wrong view, that kind of view, is called bhava-tanha. So bhava-tanha is tanha associated with view that things are permanent, things are eternal. Now, vibhava-tanha. In the word vibhava, we has a negative meaning. So vibhava means, say, non-bhava. Non-bhava means destruction of bhava, annihilation. So vibhava-tanha is explained here as when it occurs along with the annihilation view that assumes that same object to break up and be destroyed, it is called vibhava-tanha. So vibhava-tanha is the tanha which is associated with the view that the beings are just annihilated at death and there is no rebirth for them. Or things once destroyed and never arise again. So when the thirst for rupa arises together with that kind of view, taking beings to be annihilated at death, then that is called vibhava-tanha. So vibhava-tanha is tanha associated with annihilation view. Tanha is what? Thirst for objects of desire. And bhava-tanha is that same thirst when it arises together with the eternity view. And vibhava-tanha is that same thirst arising together with the annihilation view. So this is the correct interpretation of these three words or these three kinds of tanha. Now, even here in this book, it is Nyanamoli's translation of Visuddhimagga. He translates the bhava-tanha and vibhava-tanha as craving for becoming, craving for non-becoming. There is an explanation given here very clearly, right? But when he translated the word, translated like that. The craving for becoming, craving for non-becoming, so that is not correct. Some even translate the vibhava-tanha as say craving for self-annihilation. And once, years back, I gave a book on Buddhism to a man. And next week when he came to me, he said, "Bhante, Buddhism accepts suicide." I was surprised. I was wondering where he got this idea. So I asked him why. Then he pointed to the translation of the first sermon, where these three types of tanha are mentioned. And he said, there it said self-annihilation. So the craving for self-annihilation means maybe craving for killing oneself or something like that. So you can get a very wrong idea from these translations. So it is very important that you have a knowledgeable teacher to correct you if you make mistakes in understanding the teachings of the Buddha. Okay, since there are three kinds of tanha for each one of the 6 kinds of tanhas, there are altogether how many? 18 kinds of tanha. And these 18 kinds of tanha can arise in our minds, and also it can arise in other people's minds. So when it when they arise in our mind, we call it they arise internally, and when they arise in other people's mind, we call it externally. So, in our continuity or in other people's continuity. So if we multiply the 18 by these two kinds of continuity, we get how many? 36 kinds of tanhas. And each one of them belongs to the past, present, and future. So 36 multiplied by 3, 108. So it is said that there are 108 kinds of tanhas. You will find this expression even in the texts and also in the commentaries. But they will not explain how it comes to be 108. So I want you to be familiar with this number, 108 tanhas, 108 tanhas. So first there are 6 tanhas, and they are multiplied by 3, kama tanha, bhava tanha, vibhava tanha. And they are multiplied by 2, internal and external. And they are multiplied by 3, past, present, and future. And so you get 108 kinds of craving or tanha. Now let me talk about relationship between Vedana and tanha. Now the first, the commentary said, there is only one relation, and that is relation of decisive support. And here, only vipaka sukha vedana is to be taken as vedana. So, as vedana, we must understand only the resultant pleasurable feeling. Because normally, tanha can arise only through pleasurable feeling. Is it satisfactory? Just to take the vibhaga vedana as vedana here, because the link is just vedana paccaya tanha, right? It doesn't say that vibhaga vedana paccaya tanha. It is a statement in general. So the commentary explained in another way to satisfy us. It said, a person in pain longs for happiness, and a person in happiness longs for more. And the neutral feeling, since it is peaceful, is like sukha. So a person who is experiencing neutral feeling also longs for more. So all 3 kinds of feeling is a condition for tanha. So it is more satisfactory, because all 3 kinds of tanha can be conditions for, all 3 kinds of vedana can be conditions for the tanha to arise. Now, it is easy to understand that tanha is conditioned by pleasant feeling. But how is tanha conditioned by unpleasant feeling? When we are in pain, we want this pain to disappear, and we want comfort or painlessness. And that painlessness is a kind of happiness. So when we are hungry, we want to get rid of this hunger. And when we are, say, poor, we want to be rich, and so on. And so whenever we are suffering from something, we want the opposite of that suffering. We want happiness. So when we want happiness, we long for happiness, there is tanha. And that tanha is also conditioned by this unpleasant feeling, this dukkha we are suffering now. We are suffering dukkha now, and we want to get happiness. So our thirst for happiness is actually conditioned by this suffering we are experiencing now. So the unpleasant feeling can also be a condition for thirst, tanha, or craving. Not craving for the unpleasant condition, not attachment to unpleasant condition, but craving for some other thing, which is opposite of suffering that we are experiencing at the moment. Now, towards the end of the last sitting period, it became hot. Did you feel that hot heat? So when it became hot, and you experienced hot, what was in your mind? You just make notes of hot, 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 or you just wish that the heater be turned down, turned off, or you just wish that the clock strikes. So if you wish that way, then you have done that. So you are done now for getting cool or getting out of this heat is conditioned by the unpleasant feeling you had at that time, right? So tanha can be conditioned by unpleasant feeling. To tell you the truth, I had that tanha first. I want the heater to be turned off, or I want the clock to strike. But a little later, I remember about practice, and so I just made notes of heat, and so I was able to live with that heat. So that is tanha conditioned by unpleasant feeling. And what about neutral feeling? Since neutral feeling is close to pleasant feeling, so when there is neutral feeling, we want something more, and so neutral feeling is also a condition for thirst or tanha. So all three kinds of feeling are conditioned for thirst or craving. And the commentary said, though feeling is conditioned, still without inherent tendency, no craving can arise. And so from this, the perfect saint is free. So the commentary said, it is true that Vedana is a condition for tanha, but tanha cannot arise to those who have eradicated the inherent tendencies. So tanha can arise to those only who still have inherent tendencies in their mind, anusaya. The commentary just said this, but that statement is a very, very good statement for us because it points out a way to break this wheel of life, wheel of existence. It said only when you have the inherent tendency will tanha arise. So if you do not have inherent tendency, tanha will not arise. So that means if you become an arahant, then tanha will not arise. But in order to break this wheel, what can we do? We can do something, right? So this point is a very important point in the whole of this wheel of life. As I explained yesterday, the vata, the rounds go round and on and on. And so when we look at this vata, this round of kilesa, karma and vipaka, it's very depressing. It seems there is no escape from it. It's like an ox yoked, and then it has to go round and on when people want to press oil from sesame seeds or peanuts. I think most or maybe all of you are from Asia, and so you know what I mean. When we want to press oil, we use bullocks, right? Ox, and then we made it go round and round and round, and that is what we call that device. I don't know the name of that. And so it goes round and round and round, and then press the sesame seeds, and then we get oil. And in some places where there is where water is scarce, so they bring water from the lower level to upper level by a wheel, and then there is the rope attached to the wheel, and there are buckets attached to the rope, and then an ox is made to go round and round so that the wheel turns, and then they get water, right? So when an ox is yoked there, then there is no end of its going. It must go round and round and round, and so there is no escape. So in the same way, when you look at these three rounds, there seems to be no escape, and very depressing. But Buddhism has something for us for consolation here, for encouragement here, because it shows that if we can do something so that tanha does not arise, although there is feeling, then we can break this field. We can break this field at this point, at this place. So once it is broken, then it will be broken out. So this place between Vedana and Tanha is our chance to break this wheel of round of rebirth. And how do we break this wheel? How do we break this link? By the practice of Vipassana meditation. Now, when you practice Vipassana meditation and you are making notes of what is at the present moment, let's say you have, let's say, pain. And so if you are aware of pain, if you are making notes of pain, then you come to see that pain does not last forever. It also arises and disappears. And so you are not, you do not long for the pleasant feeling to come. You are just with this feeling of pain, and you are concentrating on it, and so there can tanha cannot arise out of this feeling. And when you are feeling good, and so you have pleasant feeling also, you are making notes of this feeling, and so you understand that this pleasant feeling also arises and disappears. And so when you see the true nature of feeling, that it arises and it disappears, then you will not be attached to the pleasant feeling. So when you do not have you will not have the craving for pleasant feeling. So when you do not have the craving for the pleasant feeling, whether you are experiencing pleasant or unpleasant feeling, that means you are cutting this wheel at this place. So this is the only place where we can cut this wheel. At other places there is no way. Not even the Buddha can interfere with this process. So this is the only place where we can hit this wheel. So let's call it a weak spot in this wheel. And if you can hit strong enough, you'll be able to break this field. Are we breaking this link with Vipassana meditation? The break we make with Vipassana meditation is momentary, and only with regard to the object we observe. So with regard to other objects which we do not observe, there will still be craving, following, feeling. But with regard to the objects we observe, we pay attention to, and we see their true nature as impermanent and so on, then we do not let craving to arise as a result of that feeling. So when we practice Vipassana meditation, we are breaking this link, although it is momentary, and although it is for that particular object we pay attention to. But although it is the breaking by Vipassana meditation is weak compared with breaking by magga, breaking by attainment, still it is a great job we are doing. You know, this wheel of life is so big and so strong that it is almost impossible, say, to deal with it, say, to hit it anywhere. So it is a great job that we are able to at least avoid craving from arising with regard to the objects we pay attention to. And if we carry on this practice more and more, one time, say, we'll be able to break this link altogether once and for all, so that it is broken permanently. So when we reach that stage, we will be without what is called latent tendencies in our minds, and so no more not only craving but other unwholesome mental states will leave us forever. If we let the craving arise, then the process will go on. So once the craving has arisen, there is no way of stopping the process, or interfering with it. But if we can avoid the arising of craving, then this process will be broken. So there will not the other links will not follow the craving link, because the craving has been, say, destroyed. So when we do not let craving arise, we are virtually making the end of this process. So with regard to this one object, we are able to stop this process. If we are able to eradicate craving altogether, then this process will stop altogether. So when this process stops, that means the cessation of this mess of suffering. What is called an existence is just a mess of suffering. What we call existence is mind and matter arising and disappearing, and so there is impermanence, suffering, and soulless nature, and so this is the unmixed mess of suffering. And this unmixed mess of suffering will go on and on if we cannot stop craving from arising. And if we can stop craving from arising, then this mess of suffering will disappear. So, in order to end this round of rebirth or this mess of suffering, what we need to do is do whatever we can to avoid craving from arising, conditioned by feeling. So this is the point where we can do something to get out of it, and this is the point taught in the teachings of the Buddha, and so it is very encouraging to understand that this seemingly invulnerable wheel can be broken at one point, at one weak point, and that weak point, we know what it is, and we know how to break that point. The only thing left for us is to make effort, to make constant effort to get rid of craving altogether. So in this wheel, which is the place where we can hit? This one, right? The second connection. So this is a weak point in the whole of this wheel. At the other places, you cannot hit. You can hit, but you will make no difference. But here, at this point, you can hit. You can hit with mindfulness. You can hit with Vipassana. So I think we should have this line a little thicker, and then not make black, but some gray, or what do you call that, some shade, so that we know it is a weak point here, and the other connection should be real black and thick. One thing. Avijja paccaya sankhara, sankhara paccaya vijnana, vijnana paccaya nama-rupa, nama-rupa paccaya salayatana, salayatana paccaya passo, passa paccaya vedana, vedana paccaya tanha, tanha paccaya upadana, upadana paccaya bhava, bhava paccaya jati, jati paccaya jara, soka parideva dukkha domanasupayasa sambhavanti. Eva vitasa kevalasa dukkha khandasa samudayo hoti. Say sadhu.